Okay. Let's get this zygomatic bone area here. The values on the cheek are the second most light receiving parts of the face. In this case, it's the light's coming from above. So that means that they'll have the second lightest set of values. And so oftentimes I'm going to be taking some of these values that I have right here that were some of the darker ones to represent some of the lighter ones. The zygomatic bone kind of faces upwards and then it goes inwards here. I'll make sure I have that in. Let's go down here. This is sort of where it ends, and you have this muscle coming over here, coming down. So when it goes from the cheek to the mouth, there's a plane break right here, and you can actually see that difference in the light. So I'm going to go ahead and place that in. Let's just get this a little bit more larger. Bring that out. I'll scale down the brush as the plane is a little bit smaller. If the plane's small, I'm going to get a smaller brush. I find that's really helpful for me, is I scale my brushes based off of the size of the planes. I know there's some artists that really like, in order to get very interesting brush marks, they'll use a size of a brush that's a little bit larger. And there are artists that really, don't like doing that. I like doing everything with a really small brush. I fall somewhere in between. If it's a large plane, I'll use a large brush. If it's a small plane, I'll use a small brush. And that really comes from just painting and just covering areas faster. Unless I want a texture, I'm going to go ahead and just, unless I want a texture that would be generated from using a small brush and like hatching marks, because that's the way if I prefer to make marks like that, unless I want to do that, I'm really going to try and get everything in with a larger brush so that I can just work quickly. Because this stage is a preliminary stage. We try my best to get everything right, but I am, again, like I said, knowing full well that I'm going to go back in. So I started working just a little bit on this transition here. Not too much. Between the lights and the shadows. I want to just keep my shadows very plain for now, for as long as I can. If I see something really kind of wrong, though, in terms of its relationship, if I need to bring something down, like this nose, I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. So here we have see the texture is coming through on the wash. That's really interesting. I don't feel the need to cover it up if it's the right value. If it's the right value, I won't even notice it. All right, I've kind of preliminarily done all that stuff. I really like the way the values of the lips came out, so I'm gonna just kind of correct some of the values here that need to be darker or need to be adjusted. I know that my model has like an earring and whatnot. Not going to worry about that yet. I'm just going to correct this light side here. It's a little darker there. There you go. Something to that extent. Now I'm going to just sort of sit back. Okay, that looks good. Let's get this neck in. much darker. So pretty narrow in scope. Kind of looking at this, it's a little light, but I'm going to go ahead and just sample something that's a little bit darker here. We brush over and sample the darker version, that darker value that it creates from doing that. There's a nice cast shadow coming across. I don't want to soften it. It becomes more diffused as it goes away from the light, but it's not going to be that soft. Okay, so you could see, I'm just to zoom out here. We have a nice blocking. Now, some people, as an underpainting, that might suffice. I'm going to show you how to go a little bit further with it. For me, I think this would work just fine to go to the next stage. But I'm comfortable with modeling my medium size and smaller planes with color. Now, if you're not, or you're not too familiar with traditional mediums, lean heavy on your underpainting. Let it help you get all the information down and solve as many of the problems pictorially as possible before you move on to the color stage. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to just label this really quick and label it first pass. And I'm going to show you how to just do a second one, or what a second one would look like, and my thought process behind thinking about that. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of rinse and repeat, but this time I'm going to be a little bit more specific. So I've got a lot more values in, and I'm going to ask myself, okay, first, are there any large values that I need to change? And the reason why I'm able to do that now, much easier now versus before, is because before I didn't have that much to compare. So the more you have to compare, the more accurate, the more informed your choices are going to be, right? Because you just have more information. So that's why things like the lift out help too, versus just starting from white. It's not that it's impossible to do that. On the contrary, I think there are a lot of artists that do like to start from just pure white. But it's, over the course of art history, it's, artists figured out that it's really helpful to start from some sort of a middle value so that you can easily gauge how light or how dark you're going. That's really all it is. It's nothing special. All right, so I'm going to keep this. I'm going to start to really think about being a little bit more accurate with my shapes. And, in terms of the clothing, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. It's not about the clothing. If it were, then I would really work on, designing it so that the clothing was featured a lot more. And B, giving it really a thoughtful pass. But there really is a bunch of information in the clothing anyway to start off with. It's a little strap right there, and it's really not that important. But I'll go ahead and just sort of place it in. Sure, why not? Okay. Now I'm going to go into the hair to see if it needs anything. Yeah, I like the way the hair is kind of looking. I'm going to go ahead and start to use just some darker darks here. This is almost like a plane that folds underneath it over itself. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and place that in. There's a slight dark right there. Dark that comes around here. Dark right here. You see? And so I'm trying to create that or communicate the fact that it goes around the head. I'm really conscious of the planes. A little bit too dark, so I'm going to brush that back. Again, keeping it nice and soft in the edges. At this point, what I'm going to do is go ahead and flip it horizontal. And that just gives me a fresh view. I do that quite a bit. Traditionally speaking, a way of doing that is just looking at your painting through a mirror, looking at the reflection through a small mirror and having your reference next to it. Just gives you a better way of comparing. That's all. I find it's helpful. Okay, so what I'm going to start to do now is just create just a more specific set of tiles. They're going to be a little bit smaller in areas. Other areas, not so much. If they're a large plane, then they'll maintain that. The one thing I will do is make sure I'm finessing the edges are a little bit more careful. I'm placing them with a little bit more care than I would earlier on. Now, I really like a painterly look. It's just a preference that I have. I enjoy all types of art, types of finish, in especially figurative art. I appreciate that, but I just prefer a painterly look. So a lot of these strokes that I have right here, I'm totally fine just leaving alone. If you're not, then make sure that you're addressing. This is the second passage where you really kind of address each and every plane. And you can work section by section at this point because everything's in. So you have enough information to compare off of so that you know exactly what values you have at your disposal in a given area. And that's the whole point of that block in that first pass. It's kind of establishing that information for yourself. Let's tell a little bit more of the story here of this brow as it goes back. I am going to now really concentrate on the transition between light and shadow, putting in some darker darks. This is super subtle, and I want to be really careful. You also notice I'll start to paint over my drawing of what's left of my underdrawing. If you're doing illustration work, if you're doing something that is just careful, it's got a pretty intricate drawing. This is something you might want to consider doing, just holding off until the end. You do all that hard work, doesn't make any sense. Doing a drawing doesn't make any sense to just all of a sudden then blow past it and cover it up. But again, your mileage may vary. It all depends on the type of art that you do, how confident you are about your drawing and recovering it. If I lost this drawing, I'd be totally fine recovering it. But if I want to progress really quickly, I'm going to try and preserve it as much as I can. I don't want to do it as much of like a to my detriment, though. It'll become a hindrance. Like everything will start to feel like cut out if I'm not careful. So I'm going to start to commit. The one thing I will do is, yes, I am working section to section, but one thing I will do is I tend to just avoid finishing off the eyes. I find that it prematurely finishes off the head if it's too early, and causing you to kind of focus in on that and focus your efforts on only rendering the eye, where it's really more about the head or what's encasing the eye, if you will. Step back. Okay. Okay. This comes in. This goes out. Now what I'm doing is I'm really focusing on that side plane. Just think about it like if you're touching your nose and touching your ear, you got to notice there's a considerable difference or distance that your finger has to travel to reach that destination point, between those two destination points, I should say. So when you're painting a front-facing head like this, you realize you have to be conscious that you're painting in perspective. So there's a lot of foreshortening happening, and you've got to be able to describe that foreshortening through your value. And the value changes are there, and the reference is just sensitizing your eyes to seeing that. And the way you do that is just studying the structure of the head, and that helps you be conscious of where those formed plane or plane changes, I should say, are. And what I mean by planes, I mean like sides of a form. So plane change is like just it changes its side. So it's a different side of the form. It's like a wing to the nostril. The nostril is like there's a front part right here, and then it kind of goes out, and there's a cartilage that there's three parts. There's like a front and then two sides. Technically a front, bottom, and two sides. At this point, I could start to really think about just my darkening my shadows too. I might do that after really quickly going over this pass. I'm putting in more subtle transitions by just putting in smaller tiles if I need to. A lot of times when I'm making a mark, I'll make kind of like a little circle. Sometimes I do this, but most of the time I kind of draw the tile in. So that's like a big start, a big shape. It'd be akin to kind of in traditional painting, like using the side of the brush in combination with the top of the brush. Cover that back up here. I don't tend to use a lot of layers because I like to think of things again like painting. If I make a mistake, I'm not going to just erase it necessarily or undo it. I think if I just paint over it, and that painting over it, you also get that kind of variety in your edges, and I think that makes for an interesting image.